Kevin Garnett, an NBA champion, a 15-time All-Star, and by all accounts, one of the best, meanest, most formidable big men ever to play the game. With the ring, the reputation, and the confidence he has now, it's hard to remember that early in his career, it wasn't so obvious who this young, long player was going to be. Was he the future of the NBA? Or was he just another overhyped kid who got our hopes up for no reason? Well, after a certain abysmal playoff game, it looked like KG might be the latter. With a chance to write a positive narrative for the nascent Timberwolves, Kevin Garnett failed to rise to the occasion, buckled under pressure, and played emotionally. He didn't look like a future star. He looked like he was bad at basketball. This is Kevin Garnett's worst playoff game. May 2nd, 1998, Seattle, Washington. It was Game 5 of the first round, an elimination game. Kevin Garnett was young, just 21 in fact. Is it really fair to criticize someone's performance when they're so young? Yes, and I'll tell you why. KG had been in the league for 3 years and was, at this point, a 2-time All-Star. This wasn't even his first time in the playoffs. Okay, it's his second, but still. Everyone predicted a blindingly bright future for KG, even saying he could be the best player in the NBA. He and fellow baby teammate Stephon Marbury were heralded as up-and-coming stars, often called the next Karl Malone and John Stockton. Their star power was so strong, ESPN picked them to help promote their brand new magazine. The young duo may have even inadvertently given ESPN the idea for the body issue.
ESPN magazine is gonna be fat, but please, no swimsuits. Tastefully done, but definitely all new.
Oh, and let me just mention, in case it matters, right before the season started, young Garnett signed the biggest contract in all of sports ever. $125 million for a 6-year extension. So I'm not about to cut this millionaire any slack just because he's 21. He's young, but he's a star. The fact that this series went to 5 games was a testament to what KG and the Wolves were capable of. Despite the hype on individual players, nobody expected this series to amount to anything. Sure, we'd probably see some good plays from Garnett and Marbury, but this is a 7-seed, 2-seed matchup. They were up against the veteran Supersonics. The T-Wolves had only been to the playoffs once, it was last year, and they got swept. This year's regular season record of 45-37 was the first winning season in franchise history. And one of their big 3 who helped get them that winning record, Tom Gugliotta, was injured. But once the series got underway, expectations changed because Garnett changed them. Well, okay, not in Game 1. In Game 1, they lost 108-83 and everything made sense. But in Game 2, Flip Saunders switched to a smaller 3-guard lineup, moved Garnett to center, and double-teamed Vin Baker. And it worked. The Wolves won 98-93. KG looked solid all game and had a huge block late in the 4th, despite being in foul trouble. You love to see it. It was the first playoff win in franchise history. Minnesota was pumped. So pumped, in fact, Garnett threw superstition to the wind and proudly declared the T-Wolves would win the series. In Game 3, his prediction looked accurate. The Wolves won 98-90. KG was great, especially in the 4th. He put up 7 points in the final minutes of the game, helping the Wolves close out. Again, KG saw an upset on the horizon and was not shy about it. Game 4 was a disappointment for the Wolves and a relief for the Sonics. Minnesota lost by just 4, and despite the loss, Garnett put up a good showing. Going into Game 5, Kevin Garnett was living up to his reputation. They said he was the star of the future, but when does the future start? With one of the biggest upsets in NBA history within his grasp, could the future start this very night? No. In his first offensive move of the game, KG got stripped. He recovered only to miss the shot. This play may seem inconsequential, not that bad. It's a few seconds out of a 48-minute game. But here's the thing. Lost balls and missed shots would become the status quo, the inescapable script for Kevin Garnett's worst playoff game. For example, a few plays later, Minnesota ran their trusty pick and roll, KG got a fairly open look, and it bounced out. But come on, that could have happened to anybody, even Karl Malone, or in this case, the future Karl Malone. Later in the first, he got the ball down low, but lost it when Gary Payton double-teamed him. Yeah, that was good D, but This is the guy who just a few nights ago told reporters he was gonna win the series. Shouldn't he be better at this? The second quarter had some upswings. He hit 3 shots, including an authoritative dunk, though he did have another turnover to that swarming Sonics double team. At this point, you might be thinking, this game isn't so bad. KG's had some misses, some makes, some turnovers, but they were forced. So what's my problem? Why am I being so mean to Kevin Garnett? He's never done anything to anyone. Well, why don't we just wait and see how this game turns out, shall we? Shortly after forgetting to put his hands up while guarding Vin Baker, the Sonics' regular season leading scorer, KG got in the paint, got himself some room, and a forceful brick. A few possessions later, he traveled. And they might have called more travels back in 1998, but that's still an embarrassing way to turn the ball over. Less than a minute later, he threw a lazy pass because, it was an elimination game, which was, of course, intercepted because it was an elimination game. Oh, I almost forgot, the guy who was enough of a star to launch ESPN magazine also missed a free throw. Though I should mention, he made the other free throw, because if I don't, we might start feeling sorry for a man whose trash talk can be, what's the word? Unprofessional. His successful free throw is also significant because it was the last time he scored all game. You heard right, his last point was with 3:44 left in the first half. Of course, Kevin Garnett has had poor shooting performances in other playoff games. In 2011, when Boston faced Miami, he went 1 for 10 in Game 4, a game where a win would have tied up the series. But he was up against some tough competition. He played well in other games that series, including 28 points in Game 3, and perhaps most importantly, he had his ring and his reputation already. His career was defined. This game didn't make anyone think, Kevin Garnett might not be that great. We wouldn't dare. A few years after that, KG had another terrible shooting night. The loss of this game and eventually the series marked the beginning of the end for Boston's dominant era. But nobody blamed Kevin's shooting for that. Even Doc Rivers said it wasn't his fault. And let's not forget, he had that ring and reputation already. But back in Seattle, KG was flirting with a totally different reputation. He finished the half with 7 points, 4 turnovers, and 2 whole rebounds. But there was still time for him to turn it around, especially because Minnesota was surviving KG's "I forgot what's basketball again" style performance. The T-Wolves were actually up at halftime 47-44. It wasn't because Marbury stepped up, he was struggling right along with Garnett. Rather, it was Anthony Peeler who almost saved Minnesota. He hit 6 of 8 threes and finished the game with 28 points. If the T-Wolves could have pulled this one out, Peeler would have been the hero of one of the biggest upsets in NBA history. Wonder if Peeler and KG discussed any of that in 2004 when they got in a little dust-up. KG kicked off the second half, being stripped by Vin Baker and having the ball bounce off of him and out of bounds. And it only gets worse. Approximately 2 minutes later, while the commentators were discussing Minnesota's turnovers, Garnett held the ball out in front of him for anyone who wanted it to take it. And Jerome Kersey was like, "Yeah, I want the ball. It's an elimination game. Give it." Coming off a Minnesota timeout, KG forgot how to dribble. People say this guy's gonna be the best player in the NBA. Ratings are gonna suffer. He missed a few more, then picked up a completely unnecessary offensive foul while vying for position with future Parks and Rec star Detlef Schrempf. KG was clearly losing his cool. On the next play, he just shoved Nate McMillan because he got too close to him. But then, a few possessions later, KG hit a shot. Maybe things were turning around. Nope. The $125 million man traveled again. No basket. Flip takes him out of the game until the fourth quarter. Garnett was so sad and too big to be properly comforted. But hey, at least none of his teammates were gonna yell at him until he cried. Seeing all these KG turnovers might remind you of the 2012 Eastern Conference semis when the Celtics played the Sixers and Garnett had 7 turnovers. But I'm reluctant to be too hard on him because Boston won the series in the end. KG had other good games that series, and the one bad game in an otherwise good series made for a perfect storyline in Uncut Gems. Oh yeah, once again, he had his ring and rep already. This game didn't define who KG was as a player. That definition was already written in permanent ink. But in 1998, he was still defining himself, and he could still have a good fourth quarter. The Sonics were up by 7, a surmountable lead. And Garnett had some big fourth quarters this series. There's no reason he couldn't do it again. He came out firing, but still couldn't hit. I mean, he hit the rim here, that's kinda something. He was clearly frustrated, as we can see on the defensive end, when, instead of helping his team fight for this rebound, he gave up and seemed to ask something like, "Why has God forsaken me?" Then the man who just a few nights ago chanted "one more game" to the crowd missed another shot. It rattled around the rim, getting his hopes up only to smash them. To give Garnett credit, he didn't get ball shy in the face of all these misses. He was wide open, he didn't back down and pass, oh my god, just pass it. With under 5 minutes to go, KG failed to catch a ball that hit him in the hands. As the last moments of his season ticked down, KG sidled up to Detlef during a free throw and said, "I didn't have it tonight." Hey, quick cue. If a young opponent said that to KG during a free throw, do you think he'd lend a sympathetic ear? Now, KG has certainly had other playoff games where he didn't have it, like his 2014 postseason with the Nets, but he was playing limited minutes, he turned 38 during that postseason, and these weren't defining games for Garnett by any stretch of the imagination. He's got that ring and is in the twilight of his career. Lay off. Game 5 in 1998 mattered. It could have sent waves through the NBA. Not just that there was a young foe in the West capable of upsetting veteran teams, but the humiliation to the Sonics would have most likely gotten George Karl fired. Instead, Minnesota lost 97-84 and was eliminated. Despite this terrible game, nobody was too hard on Garnett about it. Gary Payton and the critics said, essentially, wait till Garnett and his team reach their potential. But what this loss meant and what the commentary confirmed is that Minnesota is still the team of the future instead of the team of right now. And Minnesota stayed the team of the future instead of the team of now for 5 more years. They were eliminated from the first round of the playoffs every year after this until 2004. And it seemed like this was what KG's legacy would be. A good player who wasn't good enough to lead his team to the championships or even out of the first round. But of course, we know that's not what happened. It took a very long time, but Garnett's predicted bright future did come to fruition. He won MVP in 2004, but he was really given a new life when he was traded to Boston in 2007. He was Defensive Player of the Year in 2008, but I'm burying the lead a bit here. In 2008, 10 years after his horrible loss to Seattle, Kevin Garnett earned his ring. He set his legacy in stone. Kevin Garnett is an NBA champion, one of the best players to ever grace the hardwood, expected to be nominated to the Hall of Fame later this year. We don't call him the next Karl Malone, it's not necessary. He's Kevin Garnett. That says it all. But there was once a playoff game so bad we saw an alternate reality in which Kevin Garnett didn't look like a star, wasn't able to handle the pressure of high expectations, and traveled more than once. It kicked off a pattern that continued for years, forcing us to live in this alternate reality where KG was confined to the first round of the playoffs. And despite his notorious ability to trash talk, I thought it was a good idea to remind everyone of that. Thanks for watching. For more KG content, check out This Beef History with Joakim Noah. Or for another playoff disaster, may I suggest relishing in this Tom Brady failure. Subscribe to SB Nation, ring that bell for notifications, and enjoy the rest of your day.